Well, welcome. My name's Michelle. I'm the Director of Admissions, and I want to thank you for your interest in Hudson Montessori School. So I'm going to hand off to our head of school, Matt Virgil, and then we're going to get started.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Thank you for your interest in Hudson Montessori School. And also thanks to 3 parents in our school who are joining to give their perspective on how Hudson Montessori School has done with distance learning since we had to close our campus in the middle of March and finish our school year. So Paige Crable and Valerie Clifford and Dan Eggleston are joining us. Collectively, they have 7 children in the school, ranging from Children's House, which is our preschool, all the way to middle school. And so I'm going to begin by asking Paige a question. And Paige, so one of the things that we know is that this idea of just switching to distance learning happened quickly. And when we had maybe about 10 days preparation to think it was maybe coming to us, and then about 2 days to actually really put it into practice. And we've been doing it now for 9 weeks. So I'm curious if you could talk about how you think our faculty is doing with distance-based learning as you observe your 2 children going through it.
Well, I'm going to use the word amazing, but that's not a big enough word to encompass kind of how I feel about how this transition has happened, even from the start. Again, it was so fast and so quick and so many changes for all of us. But I'll be honest, I don't feel like my children, I have my daughter is in upper L and 4th level, and my son is in middle school, missed a beat. We were up and running. They had communication with the teachers right off the bat. They had assignments that just picked up where they left off. There was a little ebb and flow in getting the new routines down, but the routines were there. We kicked off with morning meetings. My son, who's in middle school, had a whole schedule, and they were right. It was amazing to my husband and I, because we would sit in our shared space, since he's home as well, and we could feel as if we were in the classroom with them. It was almost like we are getting a snapshot of what their day is like. And how amazing is that, in a weird sense, because we were just observing, I think, a normal ebb and flow of the process. And and I thought about this question, and it goes back to why I have children. I have a son graduating Montessori school who's been there since 3. I think it's the power of Montessori education, and that our teachers, who are so talented in their craft, adapt daily to meet the needs of our children. They adapt every day, every week. And so this was an extreme situation. There's no doubt about
absolutely.
it. But they continually impress me with their ability to adapt, and they adapt to this situation. I imagine in the same way they take even those smaller steps with children each day in the classroom. They were innovative, they were creative, they brought along, and you could see small adjustments each week to fine tune the process, which spoke to how much they collaborated with each other, and really were working to create the best environment for the child. And watching it, I could feel it. So I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing to watch and feel something, but it was a unique situation for all of us. But I feel like my children did not miss a beat, and they have been 100% engaged the entire time.
It's interesting, and I appreciate that perspective, and that we are flies on the wall right now, because oftentimes we're just off to the side of the camera while a lesson is going on, or watching them do that. So we are getting a really good view of what life is like at Hudson Montessori School when we are on campus. That's a great point. Dan, can I turn to you and talk about independence? So independence is something that is really critical to Montessori philosophy. It's a value, it's a trait that we try to build in our children as they go through the school. So you have 2 boys in the middle school, 7th and 8th grade. Did independence help them in their transition to distance learning?
Well, I don't think there's any question that the independence has made the transition seamless for my two sons. And I think what I see in my sons is really the culmination of 10 years of Hudson Montessori School and the Montessori pedagogy affecting, helping my boys mature into the adolescence that I envisioned when I first enrolled them back when they were 3 and 4 years old. So when it was kind of an abrupt change, but as Paige said, the boys didn't miss a beat. And what I saw with what they were able to do is, first they were able to manage their schedule, which was very similar to what they have in while they're on campus, but they're able to do that on their own. I had very little to do with it. They know when they have to wake up, they know to go get breakfast, they get themselves dressed, and they start their morning meeting at 8:30, just as if I dropped them off, in car line on any other given morning on campus. But they completely manage the schedule themselves. I mean, they're independent and able to manage that all completely on their own. And then they're also able to manage not just their schedule, but just the time they have and kind of the workload, right? When maybe things are a little bit more structured when they're in the classroom or in, with their peers, the day maybe is a little bit more structured. In this case, they are being asked to do a lot of that themselves. So I see they know that the work is getting assigned, they know when it's due, they understand the expectations, they use their time wisely. I mean, it's something that it's like a maturity level that I see that I would expect of college kids. But I see it in 13 and 14-year-olds because of the Montessori program and specifically what Hudson Montessori has brought to my kids over the last 10 years.
So before we started, you said like you will start your day downstairs, you're on your work calls, and you can hear your boys up the stairs sort of doing the same thing, and in a way it's just humming along.
Yeah, and like periodically through the day, we will cross paths, right? But they're independent enough to be in their rooms and to be able to work independently. And they each have their own desks with their own Chromebooks in their own rooms, but they'll come out, I'll hear them talking amongst themselves, right? Their peers in the same classroom. But also, as we cross paths, I'll ask, hey, how are things going? He's like, Dad, I've got a conference call at 10:30. I got to get on Zoom and meet with my classmates, right? I mean, it is what I do every day in my professional life, and I see how independent they are and being able to handle what could have been a very challenging situation. And they handle it as if this was just part of everyday life. And I think, again, it's part of that independence, but it's also this sense of maturity, or it's not that I see in the boys, right? They can handle curveballs, right? They can handle situations that they didn't expect because they were kind of brought up through this whole program to be able to think independently, think critically. And, again, I see it all coming together as my oldest son is going to graduate in exactly the way that I hoped from the very beginning when we enrolled him at Hudson Montessori School.
So Val, you have, relative to Paige and Dan, you have younger children in the school, lower elementary, which for us is 1st through 3rd grade, and Children's House. And so one thing that I'm interested in is we really pride ourselves on strong relationships between the school and home, and frequent communication and honest communication. And that's when we're in person and we're seeing each other. I'm curious how you have seen that working for you as a parent of 3 children during this campus closure when you're doing distance learning at home.
Well, Pat, I have to say that each and every one of the teachers and intervention specialists have been beyond supportive in meeting the individual needs of my children. And our online education at Hudson Montessori consists of daily morning meetings, weekly one-on-one meetings, weekly music, physical education, and Spanish meetings. We also have daily small group lessons that focus on a specific topic, like math or botany or literature. And there's always a follow-up activity that the students can sort of test their knowledge and expand from it and you know, apply it to something else, whether it's the real world or nature. Because of this constant interaction that we have with our teachers, there's a true partnership, I believe, between the student and the teacher and the parent. The activities and ideas that are sent home, they highlight a lot of the Montessori methods. And while many activities are online, especially, you know, during this time, I feel that our teachers have still managed to incorporate a lot of this hands-on learning that is so prevalent, you know, in Montessori education. The students continue to learn at home with materials that they're accustomed to using in the classroom, whether it's the large bead frame for completing math equations into the millions category or comparing fractions in the lower elementary classroom. My daughter, she even has a movable alphabet for Children's House that she uses to spell and create words because she's in the pre-writing stage. And what I love most is, as I mentioned before, the extension activity. There's always something where the students can apply their knowledge and see how it relates to the real world.
Yeah.
Val, have you had to reach out to your teachers and say, listen, hey, I got to adjust. I need your input. Help me figure out how to do this. Have you had that? Have you had to reach out? And I'm just curious, like, what's been that process? Has it been a positive one?
It's definitely been positive. We always have our one-on-one meetings where the students can meet with the teachers, and I sort of sit in on that just to add my 2 cents or ask some questions here and there. The emails, you know, they're always so willing to reach out and help us or respond to anything. And I haven't really had any problems per se, but sort of, I guess, learning the Montessori methods. I wasn't too familiar. You know, I used to be a public education teacher, but I wasn't really familiar with some of those Montessori or hands-on materials of how they can actually learn in a more direct way. But the teachers were just beyond helpful and supportive. I mean, it's been amazing. As Paige mentioned before, like, amazing keeps coming to my head, even though it's beyond amazing.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm glad that you take it beyond just the homeroom teachers. You know, you mentioned intervention specialists and the co-curriculars. It really is across the board. Yeah, absolutely.
And it definitely
Paige,
creates, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, please.
I was just going to say, it creates a sort of sense of normalcy for the students, because I feel like everything that they were working on and learning in the school sort of transitioned to their home environment.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that is feedback that we've received as well. Paige and Dan, I wanted to highlight something. You have middle schoolers, and we have a unique middle school. It is intentionally small. And that is part of the Montessori philosophy. But I'm curious if you could give your perspective on the uniqueness of our middle school that you've seen in now what is going to be your graduates in the next couple of weeks, I guess. Gosh, I was about to say months, no, weeks. So, Paige, could I put you on the spot and have you start? Is that fair?
Sure, that's great. So the middle school, I think, is unique in just the overall way that they manage the growth of the child, or at this young person. It's a lot of project-based work. It's very collaborative. It's very discussion-oriented. It lends itself to a very flexible schedule, in a sense, and flexible in that there's definite topics that are covered, but there's a fluidity about that the students move through their day, a lot like what we might have shared a little bit earlier, in the fact that there's certain times where the group comes together, where information is shared, and then the young person goes on and creates. There's a creativity piece about it. There's a lot of discussion, peer-to-peer interaction, and so I think it's amazing in the sense how they build that sense of community. And I think that's been one of the most amazing things. They have discussions that my husband and I get perplexed with at the dinner table, by which they analyze material. But I do think the environment itself allows that to grow and shrink and grow based on how the young person is developing. They have and I think that creates a sense of self in them, that they can stand and have an opinion and create thoughts and critically think through things. And then the lessons are always interactive like that. So everybody has a voice, the information is shared, and then the information is consumed in a collaborative manner. My son is on the phone all the time with his peers doing math problems, Spanish problems. The lessons themselves are interactive. So I just think that the community itself creates an openness that allows the young person to come in, grow who they are, and then there'll be something different when they leave, but in the most positive way ever. So.
So I was just going to build on something that Paige mentioned really quick, that word community is so important, especially in Montessori, right? As they go through the program and you see it kind of come to the forefront, especially in the middle school, is this idea of community where the adolescents they have a much different sense of community. And in the middle school, especially in the Hudson Montessori School program, there's such a big focus on community, especially as they're starting a new school year, right? The very beginning of the school year, they establish that community, right? They establish the values they're gonna hold each other to. And it's such an important part of the program, it's such a special part of the program that really helps to create this, an environment for nurturing this growth that we see in these adolescents. And especially in the way that we've structured the middle school program, it really starts in lower elementary and through upper elementary. It is about community. And so I just wanted to highlight how important that is, and why I think it really helps to, if you're coming into the school through a lower elementary program, the upper elementary program, or directly into the middle school, that sense of community is part of what we do. We try to establish it, and it really works.
Paige and Val and Dan, I really appreciate you spending time with us on a school night, talking with Michelle and me, giving us your impressions of the work that we have been doing in distance learning. And something that I would say is, Michelle and I have the benefit of being in the school each day. This is not something that we're surprised by. This is what we do every day. And I think you, Paige, you were sort of saying that you sensed that was what was going on, and now you were able to see it in this distance learning format. So my hope is that if you watch this video and it piques your interest, that you get in touch with Michelle, and you can do that on our website, and ask her to schedule a tour, a virtual tour. We have those. To learn more about what makes this school, whether it's on campus, which is what we plan to be doing, or off campus, really special and unique.
Yeah. Thank you for joining.